A 19-year-old black girl hurries through the streets on her old bicycle trying to finish her last delivery and earn enough to pay for her room. Suddenly, an old woman steps right in front of her. She slams the brakes and crashes hard onto the pavement. Anger sparks for a moment, but as she lifts her eyes, she realizes there's something deeply off about the old woman. What happens next will change her life forever. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you watching from. We love to hear your thought. The afternoon sun hung over Phoenix like a hammer waiting to fall. It was July, the kind of July that turned asphalt soft and made the air shimmer in waves you could see but never touch. Maya Torres pedaled her mother's old bicycle down McDowell Road, her legs burning, her throat dry, and her mind fixed on a single number: $47. Maya was 19 years old, though some days she felt twice that. Her mother Carmen used to tell her that story every birthday. Sitting on the edge of Maya's bed in their small apartment, her hands rough from cleaning houses but her voice soft. "You come from strong women, Meja," she'd say. "Don't you ever forget that." But Carmen had been gone for 8 months now. Cancer had taken her slowly, eating away at her body while Maya watched helplessly from a plastic hospital chair. The bills had come next, swallowing up what little savings they'd had. Then the apartment, then everything else. Now Maya was just a name on a delivery app, a face nobody looked at twice, a girl pedaling through Phoenix with $47 to her name and 12 hours until she'd be homeless again. That's what she'd made so far today. $47. She needed 85 by 9 o'clock tonight, or she'd have nowhere to sleep. Maya's phone buzzed against her thigh. She slowed, pulling to the side of the road near a faded bus bench, and checked the screen. Mr. Harris, her landlord. She closed her eyes for a second before answering. Mr. Harris wasn't a bad man. He'd actually given her more chances than most would. But patience had limits, especially in a city where people were lined up waiting for any room they could afford. "Hello, Maya." His voice was flat, tired, not unkind, but not warm either. "It's Thursday." "I know, Mr. Harris. I'm working. I'll have the rent by 9 tonight." There was a pause. She could hear him breathing on the other end, could picture him standing in the narrow hallway of the boarding house, looking at the list of tenants taped to the wall beside the phone. "This is the 3rd time this month you've been late," he said. "I know, I'm sorry, it's just been I have other people waiting for that room, Maya. Good people, people who pay on time." She bit the inside of her cheek. Good people. The words stung more than he'd probably meant them to. What did that make her? "I understand. I'll have it tonight. I promise." Another pause. Longer this time. 9 o'clock, he said. Not 9:01. "If you're late, I'm putting a lock on the door. I'll leave your things outside. I'll be there." He hung up without saying goodbye. Maya sat on the curb, staring at the cracked pavement. Her water bottle was empty. She drained it an hour ago and hadn't had time to refill it. Her shirt clung to her back, damp with sweat that had soaked through the sports bra she'd been wearing for 3 days straight because she hadn't had quarters for the laundromat. Her hands ached from gripping the handlebars, calluses on top of calluses. But she couldn't stop. Not yet. She looked at the bike. It was old, the blue paint chipped and faded, the chain rusted in spots, but it still worked. It had belonged to her mother back when her mother could still ride, back before the sickness that turned her skin gray and her voice into a whisper. Maya could still see the words her mother had written in permanent marker on the underside of the seat, faded now but still legible: "Pare mi hija fuerte." For my strong daughter. Maya wasn't sure she was strong. She was just still moving, still breathing, still fighting for one more day, and then one more after that. Her mother had fought too, right until the end, fought to stay awake during Maya's visits, fought to remember Maya's face when the morphine made everything swim, fought to squeeze Maya's hand one last time before she slipped away on a Tuesday morning while Maya was at work, trying to earn enough money to pay for medicine that wouldn't save her anyway. Maya blinked hard, pushing the memory away. She couldn't afford to cry. Not now. Not when she had everything riding on the next few hours. She checked the delivery app on her phone. 2 orders left. One was a short trip, just groceries to an apartment complex near downtown. $6. The other was across town to a neighborhood called East Valley. Chinese takeout. $15 bonus if she delivered before 8:15. That would put her at $82 for the day. Close enough. She could maybe ask Mr. Harris for an extension on the last $3, maybe, or she could skip dinner tomorrow and use what she had left. She tapped accept on the second order, and pedaled toward the restaurant, a small Chinese takeout place squeezed between a laundromat and a check-cashing store. The owner, an older man with gray hair and a stained apron, handed her the bag without a word, but she saw the way he looked at her, the way his eyes softened just a little when they landed on her face, thin and tired, and trying so hard to look like everything was fine. Pity. She hated pity. "Thanks," she said, and turned to leave. "Be careful out there," he called after her. "It's getting dark." She nodded and walked her bike out into the parking lot. The sun was sinking now, turning the sky deep orange that bled into purple at the edges. She had 45 minutes to make the delivery. It was doable, tight, but doable. She swung her leg over the bike, adjusted the insulated bag so it wouldn't slide, and started pedaling. Her legs protested immediately, muscles that had been working since 6 that morning now screaming for rest, but she ignored them. She thought about the room at Mr. Harris's place. It wasn't much, a single bed with a thin mattress that sagged in the middle, a window that didn't close all the way, letting in cold air in winter and hot air in summer. A shared bathroom down the hall that always smelled like bleach and other people's problems. But it was hers, it was safe, it was all she had. The streets began to thin as she left the commercial district and moved into a quieter part of town. Fewer cars, fewer lights. Maya picked up speed, racing against the clock. 28 minutes left. She could make it. She had to make it. The sky had turned dark now, that deep purple-black of desert twilight. The street lights flickered on one by one, casting pools of sickly yellow light across the pavement. Maya's breath came in short gasps as she pedaled harder, the delivery bag bouncing against her back with each rotation. She turned onto 7th Street, a long straight stretch that would cut her travel time. The road was mostly empty at this hour, just a few cars passing in the opposite direction. Maya didn't slow down, she couldn't afford to, and then without warning, a figure stepped directly into the street. Maya's heart lurched into her throat. She slammed on the brakes, the old pads squealing in protest. The bike's front wheel locked up. Maya felt herself pitching forward, the handlebars twisting in her grip. She tried to steer, tried to compensate, but the momentum was too much. The bike went down hard. Maya hit the pavement with her shoulder first, then her hip, the rough asphalt tearing through her thin shirt. The delivery bag flew off her back, landing several feet away with an ominous crunch. The bike clattered beside her, the pedal scraping across the ground with a metallic shriek. Pain exploded through Maya's shoulder and side. For a moment she just lay there, stunned, staring up at the darkening sky. Then the pain sharpened into something hot and immediate, and she gasped, rolling onto her back. "Jesus Christ!" Maya shouted, her voice cracking with pain and fury. She pushed herself up on one elbow, wincing. "What the hell is wrong with you? You can't just walk into the street like that." The figure stood a few feet away, not moving. An old woman, small and frail, wearing a beige cardigan despite the heat. She stared at Maya with wide, confused eyes, her mouth slightly open. Maya struggled to her feet, ignoring the way her hips screamed in protest. She could feel blood trickling down her arm where the pavement had scraped skin away. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" Maya yelled, all the fear and frustration of the day pouring out of her. "Do you have any idea?" She stopped. The woman wasn't responding. She was just standing there, blinking slowly, her hands clutching a brown leather purse to her chest. There was something wrong with her expression. Not defiant, not apologetic, just empty, lost. Maya took a breath, trying to calm the adrenaline coursing through her. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice still sharp but quieter now. "Are you hurt?" The woman didn't answer. She turned her head slowly, looking up and down the street like she was trying to remember where she was, like she'd just woken up in a place she didn't recognize. Maya grabbed her bike from the ground, checking it quickly. The chain had come off, the front wheel was bent slightly, but it might still work. She looked at the delivery bag lying in the street and felt her stomach sink. She picked it up and opened it carefully. The containers inside had burst open, sauce and rice and pieces of chicken coating the inside of the bag. Ruined. Completely ruined. God damn it. Maya threw the bag down, her hands shaking with rage and despair. That was it. That was her rent. That was her room. That was everything. She looked at her phone. 24 minutes left, and she had nothing to deliver. The customer would complain. The app would suspend her account. Mr. Harris would lock the door. She was going to be homeless. Again. Maya spun toward the woman, fury blazing in her chest. Do you see what you did? Do you? But the words died in her throat. The woman had started to cry. Silent tears were running down her weathered cheeks, her face crumpling like a child's. She reached out toward Maya with one trembling hand. Please, the woman whispered. Please, I don't know where. Maya felt her anger drain away, replaced by something colder and heavier. Dread, recognition. She stepped closer, studying the woman's face. Pale blue eyes, clouded with confusion. Silver hair falling loose from pins, the cardigan buttoned wrong. And that expression, that terrible frightened expression of someone whose mind had betrayed them. Maya had seen that expression before, on her mother's face, in those final weeks. Maya said, her voice gentler now despite everything. Are you lost? Do you know where you are? The woman shook her head slowly. I was going home, I think, but I can't. She looked around again, her breathing getting faster, more panicked. I can't remember where. She reached out and grabbed Maya's hand, gripping it with surprising strength. Are you Maria? She asked desperately. No, that's not right. Are you my daughter? You have to help me. I need to get home. My daughter is waiting. Maya's chest tightened. She tried to pull her hand back gently, but the woman held on, her fingers digging into Maya's palm. I'm not your daughter, Maya said carefully, but I can help you. Do you have any identification? A phone? Someone I can call? The woman stared at her blankly, then looked down at the purse she was clutching. She opened it with shaking hands and began pulling things out. A tissue, a lipstick, coins that fell to the ground and rolled into the gutter, a crumpled receipt, but no wallet, no phone. Maya felt panic rising in her own chest now. What was she supposed to do? She looked at her phone again. 22 minutes. She could call 911, wait for them to come, and then leave. Let the professionals handle it. She still might make it back in time if she hurried, if she left right now. But the woman was still holding her hand, still looking at her with those frightened, pleading eyes. Please don't leave me, the woman whispered. Please, everyone keeps leaving me. Maya closed her eyes. She thought of her mother, alone in that hospital room, calling out for Maya who couldn't always be there. She thought of the nights Carmen had been confused and afraid, asking for people who were long dead, begging not to be left alone in the dark. What if someone had walked away from her mother when she needed help? Maya opened her eyes and looked at the woman more carefully. That's when she saw it. Around the woman's neck, partially hidden beneath the collar of her cardigan, was a thin silver chain. At the end of it hung a small oval pendant. May I? Maya asked, gesturing to the necklace. The woman nodded, confused but compliant. Maya gently lifted the pendant and turned it over. Engraved on the back, in tiny elegant script, were the words Eleanor R. Whitmore, 2847 Camino Verde, Arcadia Heights. In case of emergency, call 602-555-0147. Eleanor. Her name was Eleanor. Maya pulled out her phone and typed the address into the map. Her stomach dropped when she saw the result. 16.3 miles, 1 hour and 20 minutes by bike. She looked at the time. 20 minutes until her delivery window closed. 40 minutes until Mr. Harris locked the door. She looked at the ruined food in the bag, at her scraped and bleeding arm, at the bent wheel on her bike, at everything that had just fallen apart. And then she looked at Eleanor, who was crying quietly, still holding Maya's hand, like it was the only solid thing in a world that had stopped making sense. Maya made a decision. She pulled out her phone and opened the delivery app. Her finger hovered over the screen for just a second before she pressed cancel delivery. The app asked, "Are you sure you want to cancel? Your rating will be affected, and you may face account suspension." Maya pressed yes. "Okay, Eleanor," Maya said, squeezing the old woman's hand. "Let's get you home." Eleanor looked at her, and for just a moment, clarity flickered in her eyes. "You're very kind," she whispered. "What's your name?" "Maya." "Maya," Eleanor repeated. "That's a beautiful name." Maya picked up her bike, forcing the chain back onto the gears with bleeding fingers. The wheel wobbled when she tried to roll it, but it moved. "It would have to be enough. Can you sit on the back?" Maya asked. "I'm going to ride you home. It's going to take a while, but I'll get you there safe." Eleanor nodded, still crying but calmer now. Maya helped her onto the metal rack on the back of the bike, using her ruined delivery bag as cushioning. Eleanor gripped Maya's shoulders. "Ready?" Maya asked. "Ready," Eleanor whispered, and Maya began to pedal into the darkness, away from her deadline, away from her room, away from everything she'd been fighting for all day, towards something she couldn't name but knew, somehow, was more important than all of it. Her phone buzzed with messages, the customer complaining, the app warning her, Mr. Harris probably, checking where she was. Maya didn't look at any of them. She just kept pedaling, with Eleanor's weight on the back of the bike, and Eleanor's hand on her shoulder, two strangers bound together by chance and choice in the dark Phoenix night. The first few blocks were the hardest. Maya's legs were already exhausted from a full day of deliveries, and now they had to compensate for the wobble in the front wheel, and the extra weight of Eleanor perched precariously on the back rack. Every push of the pedals sent a jolt of pain through Maya's scraped shoulder, and she could feel warm blood soaking into her shirt where the pavement had torn skin away. But she didn't stop. "Where are we going?" Eleanor asked after they'd gone several blocks. Her voice sounded small and childlike, so different from what Maya imagined it usually was. "I'm taking you home," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her labored breathing. "To Camino Verde, in Arcadia Heights." "Arcadia Heights," Eleanor repeated slowly, testing the words. "Yes, that's where I live, I think. Is my daughter there?" Maya didn't know how to answer that. "Someone will be there," she said instead. "Someone who's been worried about you." They rode in silence for a while. Maya focused on the road ahead, on avoiding the worst of the potholes that might throw Eleanor off balance, on keeping the bike steady despite the bent wheel that wanted to pull them constantly to the left. Her thighs burned, her hands ached where they gripped the handlebars. The cut on her arm stung with every movement. She thought about the room at Mr. Harris's. By now he'd probably already started putting her things in garbage bags. By the time she got back, if she got back, everything would be on the street, and the lock would be changed. She'd be starting over again. The thought should have terrified her. It should have made her turn around, drop Eleanor at the nearest fire station or hospital, and race back to salvage what she could. But strangely, Maya felt calm, exhausted and in pain, yes, but calm. "What's your name?" Eleanor asked suddenly. "Maya, I told you before, remember?" "Maya," Eleanor said, turning the name over in her mouth like she was tasting it. "That's lovely." "Yes, ma'am." "My housekeeper was named Rosa," Eleanor said. "She was from Mexico. She made the most wonderful tamales." She paused. "I wonder where Rosa is now." Maya didn't answer. She was too focused on pedaling, on breathing, on making it to the next street light, and then the next one. After 30 minutes, Eleanor spoke again, her voice different now, smaller, more frightened. "I'm scared," she whispered. Maya felt Eleanor's grip tighten on her shoulders. "It's okay to be scared," Maya said gently, "but you're safe. I've got you." "Everything is so mixed up in my head," Eleanor continued, and Maya could hear tears in her voice. "I know things, and then I don't know them. I recognize places, and then they're strange. It's like trying to see through water. Everything's there, but nothing's clear." Maya's throat tightened. Her mother had said almost the exact same thing once, near the end. "It's like I'm disappearing," Carmen had whispered. "Like I'm turning into water, and just flowing away." "What's happening to me?" Eleanor asked, and she sounded so lost, so terrified, that Maya had to blink back tears. "You're going to be okay," Maya said, even though she knew it wasn't true. Whatever was wrong with Eleanor, Alzheimer's, probably, given the medical alert tag, wasn't something that got better. But sometimes people needed to hear the lie more than they needed the truth. "You're going to be home soon, and everything will feel better there." They reached the edge of the city and the road began to climb. The neighborhoods changed. The houses grew larger, set farther back from the street behind walls and gates. Trees appeared, tall and old, their branches forming canopies overhead. The air smelled different here, cleaner, with hints of chlorine from swimming pools and jasmine from manicured gardens. Maya had never been to this part of Phoenix before. This was where people with money lived, people with security and futures and retirement plans. People who didn't have to choose between eating and paying rent. She had to stand up on the pedals to keep the bike moving uphill. Her legs screamed in protest. Sweat poured down her face, stinging her eyes. She could taste blood where she'd bitten the inside of her cheek. "Are you tired?" Eleanor asked, her voice full of concern. "A little," Maya admitted. "We can stop if you need to rest." "It's okay, we're getting close now." But they weren't, not really. Maya checked her phone at the next street light. Still 8 miles to go, and the battery was down to 12%. She turned off the GPS to conserve power, and tried to remember the route. They passed a small shopping center, all the stores closed for the night, a yoga studio, a gourmet coffee shop, a boutique with mannequins in the window wearing clothes that probably cost more than Maya made in a month. Her phone rang. She didn't need to look to know it was Mr. Harris making good on his promise. She let it ring. They stopped once, at a gas station at the base of a steep hill. Maya's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the bike upright. She had 87 cents in her pocket, all the money she had in the world now. She used it to buy a small cup of water from the fountain. Eleanor insisted Maya drink first. "You need it more than I do," she said with unexpected firmness. They shared the water, passing the cup back and forth, and sat on the curb under the harsh fluorescent lights. Two women from completely different worlds, brought together by accident and circumstance. "Why are you helping me?" Eleanor asked, looking at Maya with clear eyes for the first time since the accident. "You don't even know me." Maya thought about that. She thought about all the people who must have passed Eleanor on the street before Maya came along. People who'd seen an old woman wandering confused and had looked away, unwilling to get involved. She thought about the nurses who'd treated her mother like a burden. She thought about the world that made it so easy to not see each other. "Because someone should," Maya said finally. "Because you deserve to get home safe. Because," she trailed off, not sure how to put the rest into words. Because her mother had taught her that people mattered more than money. Because walking away would have meant becoming the kind of person who could walk away. Because some choices defined who you were, and Maya needed to be someone who stopped. Eleanor reached out and took Maya's hand. Her skin was thin and soft, like tissue paper, but her grip was warm. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't forget this." But she would. Maya knew. The disease would take this memory like it had taken so many others. By tomorrow, Eleanor probably wouldn't remember Maya at all. Somehow, that made Maya more determined to see this through. They got back on the bike and started the final climb. The road wound up into the hills, each turn revealing bigger houses, longer driveways, taller walls. Maya's legs felt like they might give out completely. Her vision blurred at the edges, but she kept pedaling, kept pushing, kept moving forward because stopping meant failing and failing meant this had all been for nothing. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the top of the hill. And there, at the end of a long driveway lined with olive trees, their leaves silver in the moonlight, was a house. No, not a house, an estate. White walls that seemed to glow in the darkness, black iron gates, windows that glowed with warm yellow light, a fountain in the circular driveway, water trickling softly. Maya stopped at the gate and checked the number on the stone pillar. 2847 Camino Verde. They'd made it. Maya pressed the call button on the intercom. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a man's voice crackled through the speaker. "Yes, hello," Maya said. "I have Eleanor Whitmore with me. She was lost, and I brought her home." There was a pause. "What? Who is this?" "My name is Maya. I found her at a bus stop. Her address was on her medical necklace." The gates began to swing open. A man appeared in the doorway, backlit by warm light. He was tall, wearing a white dress shirt with rolled sleeves and dark slacks. As he walked toward them, Maya could see shock and relief on his face. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "Oh my God, Mom, where have you been?" He reached the bike and helped Eleanor down, wrapping his arms around her. Eleanor looked confused, but she didn't pull away. "Richard," she said uncertainly. "Yes, Mom, it's me." He turned to Maya. "How did you find her?" "We've been looking everywhere. We were about to call the police." Maya explained quickly. "The bus stop, the necklace, the ride across town." Richard stared at her. "You rode all the way here on a bike?" He shook his head. "Come inside, please, let me get you some water. We need to thank you properly." But Maya shook her head. She glanced at her phone. 9:03. She was already late. "I should go," she said. "No, wait," Richard said. "At least let me give you something." "I don't want anything," Maya said. "I just wanted to make sure she got home safe." Richard pulled out a business card and scribbled something on the back. "That's my personal number," he said. "If you ever need anything, please call me." Maya took the card and slipped it into her pocket. "Thank you." She climbed back onto her bike and rode off into the dark, unaware that her room would be locked and her belongings in garbage bags on the step. By the time Maya reached the boarding house, it was 9:40. The lights were off, the door was locked, and sitting on the front step stuffed into 2 plastic garbage bags were all of her belongings. Maya sat on the curb, her bike beside her, the bags at her feet. She didn't cry. Crying didn't fix anything. She thought about the business card Richard had given her. She could call him. But no. She'd done what she did because it was right, not because she wanted something back. After 20 minutes, she found herself outside Carlos's auto repair. The shop was closed, but there was a light on in the back. Maya knocked on the side door. Carlos opened it, a can of beer in one hand. He was in his 60s with gray hair and a weathered face. He looked at Maya, then at the bags and sighed. "Otra vez," he said. "Again." "I'm sorry," Maya said. "I didn't know where else to go." Carlos stepped aside. "You can't keep living like this, Maya." He led her to a small storage room in the back. There was a cot in the corner covered with a thin blanket that smelled like motor oil. "It's not much," Carlos said. "It's perfect. Thank you." He brought her a sandwich wrapped in plastic. "From lunch." Maya took it, her stomach growling. "Thank you, Carlos." "Really?" He waved her off. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we figure out what's next." Maya lay down on the cot and pulled the blanket over herself. She closed her eyes and thought about Eleanor. She wondered if the old woman would remember her tomorrow, or if the fog would come back and erase everything. She pulled the business card from her pocket and stared at it in the dim light. Then she folded it and tucked it into the frame of the photo of her mother. Then she closed her eyes and let herself drift. 3 days passed. Maya spent them sleeping on the cot and using what little money she had left sparingly. But she couldn't stop thinking about Eleanor's kindness. On the 3rd night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about her mother's last words. "Don't be so afraid of letting people help you. Pride can keep you warm, but it can't keep you alive." The next morning her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered hesitantly. "Hello, is this Maya Torres?" The voice was male, smooth, professional. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is James Bowman. I'm calling on behalf of Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore." Maya's heart skipped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, better actually. She woke up this morning with full clarity. She remembers everything from that night. Everything you did for her." He paused. "She'd like to see you. Today if possible." Maya glanced at Carlos, who was watching. I don't know. She's quite insistent," James said. "I can send a car. Where are you?" Maya looked around the shop, then at Carlos, who gave her a small nod. "I'm at Carlos's auto repair," she said, and gave him the address. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. James arrived in a black Mercedes. He was about 60, wearing a gray suit, moving with the confidence of someone who'd been military. "Miss Torres," he said, extending a hand. "Maya. James Bowman, pleased to meet you." He gestured toward the car. "Mrs. Whitmore is waiting at Encanto Park. She thought you might be more comfortable meeting in a public place." That surprised Maya. Eleanor had thought about how she might feel. She climbed into the back seat. The interior smelled like leather and pine. The seats were soft. When they pulled into Encanto Park, Maya saw Eleanor immediately. She was sitting on a bench near the lake, wearing a white linen dress and a wide-brimmed hat. Her hair was neatly pinned. She looked completely different from the confused woman at the bus stop. Eleanor saw her coming and stood, a smile spreading across her face. "You came," Eleanor said. "I was afraid you wouldn't. I wasn't sure I should," Maya admitted. "Please, sit with me." They sat on the bench together. A family of ducks paddled across the lake. "I remember everything," Eleanor said. "The bus stop, your kindness, the way you didn't hesitate." She turned to face Maya. "James told me about your situation. About the boarding house." Maya felt her cheeks flush. "He shouldn't have." "I asked," Eleanor said firmly. "Do you know what it's like to feel invisible? That's what it's like most days. People look at me and see a sick old woman. But you saw me as a person. You treated me with dignity." Maya didn't know what to say. "James told me you lost your room because of me," Eleanor continued. "I can't let that stand." She paused. "I live in a very large house, too large for one person. My husband passed away 10 years ago. My son visits occasionally, but he has his own life. Most days it's just me and James." She looked at Maya steadily. "I'd like you to stay with me, as a companion. I'll cover your expenses, help you get back on your feet. If you want to go back to school, I'll help with that too." Maya stared at her. "You want me to live with you?" "Yes, why?" Eleanor smiled sadly. "Because I'm lonely, because you're in need, and because sometimes the universe puts people in each other's paths for a reason." Maya shook her head. "I can't accept that. People don't just do things like this." "Why not?" "Because there's always a catch." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "You're right to be cautious, but I promise you there are no strings, just an offer from one person to another." Maya looked down at their joined hands. "I need to think about it." "Of course." Eleanor pulled out a business card. "This is my attorney, Patricia Vance. If you decide to accept, call her." She stood. "And Maya, whatever you decide, thank you for giving me back a piece of my dignity." James drove Maya back to the shop. When they arrived, he handed her a sealed envelope. "Mrs. Whitmore wanted you to have this." Inside was $500 and a handwritten note. "For the kindness you showed a stranger. No strings attached. ERW." Carlos was watching from the doorway. "What happened?" "I don't know," Maya said honestly. "But I think my life just changed." 2 days later, Maya called Patricia Vance. The attorney's office was downtown. All glass and steel. Patricia was a black woman in her mid-60s with short silver hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Eleanor told me about you," Patricia said. "Said you saved her life. I just gave her a ride home." "A 2-hour ride. When you had everything to lose." Patricia studied Maya. "That takes character." Maya shifted uncomfortably. "I'm here to accept her offer. If it's still available." Patricia nodded. "It is. Eleanor will be very pleased." She pulled out a folder. "Let's talk about what this looks like. You'll have your own room, your own space. In exchange she'd like companionship. Someone to talk to share meals with. Nothing more complicated than that." "That's it?" "That's it." Patricia slid a paper across. "This outlines the terms. Room and board. A monthly stipend of $1,500, and Eleanor has set aside a fund for your education." Maya stared at the number. "This is too much." "It's what Eleanor decided is fair. And let me tell you something about Eleanor Whitmore. She's one of the most stubborn, generous women I've ever met. If she's decided you deserve this, there's no talking her out of it." Maya signed. James picked her up the next morning. When they pulled up to the estate, the iron gates swung open. Eleanor was waiting on the front steps, wearing a lavender cardigan and a smile. "Welcome home," she said. Home. The word hit Maya harder than she expected. Eleanor gave her a tour. The house was enormous. High ceilings, marble floors, artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. "This will be your room," Eleanor said, opening a door upstairs. Maya stepped inside and stopped. The room was larger than her entire boarding house room. A queen-sized bed, a desk by the window, a bookshelf, a door to a private bathroom. "It gets good light in the morning," Eleanor said. "I thought you might like that." Maya turned to her. tears in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Eleanor took both of Maya's hands. Because I have more than I need, and you deserve more than you have. Because loneliness is a terrible thing. And I think we can help each other. She paused. And because I had a granddaughter once, Sophie. She would have been about your age. I lost her to a car accident when she was 16. I'm so sorry. It's been years, but the house has felt empty ever since. When I look at you, I don't see Sophie. You're your own person. But I see the same spark, the same strength. And if I can help you the way I wasn't able to help her, that would mean something to me. The first 2 weeks passed like a dream. Maya woke each morning in the softest bed she'd ever slept in. She ate breakfast with Eleanor on the terrace. Eleanor set her up with an online program to study for her GED. In the evenings they'd watch old movies or play cards or simply talk. Eleanor told stories about her late husband Thomas, about building his business together, about their son. Richard was such a sweet boy, Eleanor said one night. I don't know when that changed. When money became more important to him than people. On the 15th day Maya came downstairs and found Eleanor on the phone. I want it done this week, Eleanor was saying. Yes, I'm sure. Just draw up the papers. She hung up when she saw Maya. Everything okay? Maya asked. Eleanor smiled. Just some legal business. Nothing to worry about. That afternoon, a silver Lexus pulled into the driveway. Richard Whitmore had come to visit. Maya was in the garden when Richard arrived. She was helping Eleanor with the roses. Mom, Richard's voice carried across the lawn. I didn't know you were expecting company. Eleanor straightened. Richard, what a surprise. He walked toward them, dressed in expensive casual clothes. He kissed Eleanor on the cheek, his eyes drifting to Maya with thinly veiled curiosity. Richard, this is Maya Torres, Eleanor said. She's staying with me now. Richard's smile didn't waver, but something hardened behind his eyes. Oh, I don't think you mentioned that. It's a recent arrangement. Eleanor linked her arm through Maya's. Maya is wonderful company. How nice, Richard said, the words sounding anything but. He turned to Maya, extending his hand. Richard Whitmore. Maya shook it. His grip was firm and cold. Nice to meet you. Maya is the young woman who brought me home when I got lost, Eleanor explained. Ah yes, Richard's smile sharpened. The Good Samaritan. Well, that was kind. I trust my mother compensated you appropriately. The way he said it made Maya's skin prickle, like she was hired help, not someone who'd helped a person in need. She's been very generous, Maya said carefully. I'm sure she has, Richard said. He turned to Eleanor. Mom, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to discuss something. Inside. Eleanor hesitated, glancing at Maya. Of course. Maya watched as Richard led his mother toward the house, his hand on her elbow with a possessiveness that made Maya uneasy. 20 minutes later, Eleanor came back outside. Her face was drawn, tired. Is everything okay? Maya asked. Richard is staying for dinner, Eleanor said. He's curious about you. Does he not approve? Richard doesn't approve of much these days. But this is my house and my decision. Dinner was excruciating. James served roasted chicken while Richard asked Maya question after question, each one phrased politely but laced with suspicion. So Maya, where did you grow up? Here in Phoenix. And your family? It's just me now. My mother passed away last year. I'm sorry to hear that. He didn't sound sorry. And what were you doing before you moved in here? Delivery work. Odd jobs. Ah, Richard took a sip of wine. And you have a high school diploma. Richard, Eleanor said sharply. That's enough. I'm just getting to know our new house guest. Maya set down her fork. I'm working on my GED now. Your mother has been kind enough to support that, has she? Richard leaned back studying Maya. That's very generous. My mother has always had a soft heart for people in difficult circumstances. The pause before people was deliberate. Maya felt her face grow hot. Maya is not a charity case, Eleanor said. She's a friend. Richard held up his hands. Of course. I meant no offense, but his eyes held no apology. After dinner, while Eleanor went upstairs, Richard cornered Maya in the hallway. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't a request. They went to the garden. Richard didn't speak until they were far from the house. "Let me be very clear," he said, his polite veneer dropping. "I don't know what your game is, but I'm not stupid. A homeless girl shows up out of nowhere, plays the hero, and suddenly she's living in my mother's house." "It wasn't like that," Maya said. "Wasn't it?" Richard stepped closer. "My mother is a wealthy woman, and she's sick. Her judgment is compromised, and you're exactly the type of person who preys on vulnerable elderly people." Maya felt like she'd been slapped. "I never asked her for anything. Everyone says that." Richard's voice was cold. "But people like you always have an angle." "People like me," Maya repeated, her hands balling into fists. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Richard's smile was cruel. "Don't play dumb. You're a poor girl with no family, no prospects. My mother is rich and lonely and losing her mind. It's not hard to see how this plays out." "You're wrong about me," Maya said, her voice shaking. "And you're wrong about your mother." "For now," Richard said. "But Alzheimer's is progressive. Eventually she won't be able to tell the difference between someone who cares about her and someone using her. And when that day comes, I'll make sure you're nowhere near her or her money." He stepped closer. "I'm watching you. Every move. One wrong step, and I'll have you arrested for elder abuse. Or worse." He paused. "And Maya, don't tell my mother about this conversation. It'll only upset her. We wouldn't want that, would we?" He turned and walked back to the house, leaving Maya alone in the darkening garden, her heart pounding. She thought about leaving, packing her bags and disappearing. It would be easier. But then she thought about Eleanor, about the loneliness in her eyes, about the friendship that had grown between them. No, she wouldn't leave, not unless Eleanor asked her to. When Maya came back inside, Eleanor was in the living room. Richard was gone. "He had to get back," Eleanor said. But she didn't look at Maya. Maya sat beside her. "Did he say something to you about me?" Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "Richard has always been protective, sometimes too protective, and he thinks I'm taking advantage of you. He doesn't know you like I do." Eleanor turned to face her. "Did he say something to you?" Maya thought about lying, but she'd promised herself honesty. "He told me he doesn't trust me," Maya said carefully. "That he thinks I'm using you." Eleanor closed her eyes. Pain etched across her face. "I'm sorry, Maya. It's not your fault, isn't it?" Eleanor's voice was bitter. "I raised him. Somewhere I failed to teach him that people can be kind without wanting something." She took Maya's hand. "Please don't let his suspicions drive you away. I need you here. I'm not going anywhere," Maya promised. "Not unless you want me to." "Never," Eleanor said fiercely. "You're family now, and family doesn't abandon each other." But as Maya lay in bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. 2 weeks later, Eleanor came downstairs with a determined look. "I've made a decision," she announced over breakfast. "I'm updating my will." Maya set down her coffee. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do." Eleanor pulled out a folder. "Patricia is coming this afternoon. I'm creating an educational trust for you. Enough to cover college, or whatever you want to pursue." "Eleanor, that's too much. It's my money and my decision. You've given me back something I thought I'd lost. Purpose, joy. This is how I want to thank you." "But Richard has his own money. This doesn't take anything from him." But Maya knew better. Richard wouldn't see it that way. Patricia arrived at 2 o'clock. Maya stayed upstairs, but her stomach churned with anxiety. What Maya didn't know was that across town, Richard was sitting in a private investigator's office. The investigator slid a paper across the desk. "Not much, honestly. She's clean. No criminal record beyond a shoplifting warning when she was 17. Stealing food. Charges were dropped." "She's a thief," Richard said. "She was a hungry kid." "There's a difference. Keep digging," Richard said coldly. "I need proof she's manipulating my mother. Whatever it costs." A week later, Maya's phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Maya Torres? A woman's voice. Professional. Cold. Yes. Who's calling? Jennifer Barnes from the Arizona Daily Sun. I'm working on a story about elder abuse and wanted to ask you questions. Maya's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. You're living with Eleanor Whitmore, correct? An elderly woman with Alzheimer's, who recently changed her will to include you. How do you know that? I have a source. Is it true? I'm not talking to you, Maya said, her hands shaking. My story is running whether you comment or not. There is no story, Maya said. Eleanor is my friend. That's all. A friend who's giving you money. That seems like quite a friendship. Leave me alone, Maya said, and hung up. She ran inside, finding Eleanor in the living room. Someone from a newspaper just called. They're writing a story about us. Eleanor's face went pale. Richard, she whispered. He must have leaked it. The next day the article ran. Headline: Elderly heiress falls victim to opportunistic stranger. Phoenix philanthropist Eleanor Whitmore, 78, recently updated her will to include substantial assets for a teenage girl she met only months ago. Sources close to the family express concern that Whitmore, who suffers from Alzheimer's disease, may be the victim of exploitation. Maya Torres, 19, moved into Whitmore's estate after allegedly rescuing the elderly woman. Whitmore has since created a trust fund for Torres and changed her will. My client is deeply concerned, said Marcus Reed, attorney for Whitmore's son Richard. When someone with a cognitive impairment suddenly begins giving away large sums to a stranger, that raises serious questions about elder abuse. Torres, a high school dropout with no permanent address prior to moving in with Whitmore, declined to comment. The case highlights growing concerns about vulnerable seniors being targeted by individuals seeking financial gain. Maya read the article 3 times, each word hitting like a physical blow. High school dropout, no permanent address. The implications were clear. She was trash. A predator. Her phone started ringing. Unknown numbers, reporters. She turned it off. Eleanor found her sitting on the floor of her bedroom, the newspaper clutched in her hands. Oh Maya, Eleanor said, sinking down beside her. I'm so sorry. They think I'm using you, Maya whispered. They think I'm some kind of con artist. Anyone who knows you knows that's not true. But nobody knows me. Maya's voice cracked. Nobody except you. And Richard is the one telling everyone I'm a liar. Eleanor pulled her close, and Maya finally let herself cry. Great shaking sobs. We'll fight this, Eleanor said. Patricia is already drafting a response. But Maya knew it was too late. The damage was done. The phone calls started that afternoon. Reporters camped outside the gate. Neighbors who'd always smiled now stared with suspicion. That night, Eleanor made call after call, defending Maya to friends, to board members of her charities, to anyone who would listen. She's a good person, Eleanor kept saying. She saved my life. But Maya could hear the doubt creeping into some of the voices. By association, Eleanor was tainted now. Finally Eleanor hung up and buried her face in her hands. This isn't right, Maya said quietly. I should leave. This is destroying your reputation. No, Eleanor's voice was steel. That's exactly what Richard wants. If you leave now, he wins. But what if I am hurting you? Eleanor gripped Maya's hands tightly. You saved my life. Not just that night, but every day since. This house was a tomb before you came. Don't you dare let my son's cruelty make you doubt that. Outside, a car with a camera pulled up to the gate. The legal papers arrived on a Tuesday morning. Petition for emergency guardianship Richard Whitmore, Eleanor R. Whitmore. Eleanor read through them, her coffee growing cold. He's arguing that I'm mentally incompetent, she said, her voice hollow. That I need a legal guardian. And he's petitioning to have Maya removed from the house immediately as a potential threat. Patricia arrived within the hour. He can file the petition. Whether a judge will grant it is another matter.
But the newspaper article doesn't help. If the court believes there's even a possibility of exploitation, they might grant a temporary order. How long would that take? Maya asked. Months.
Eleanor stood so quickly her chair scraped. Absolutely not. I'm calling my doctor right now. I'll get a full competency evaluation. I'll prove I'm of sound mind. The next day a news van parked outside. A reporter did a stand-up behind these gates. A legal battle is brewing that raises disturbing questions about elder abuse. Eleanor Whitmore is at the center of a guardianship case filed by her own son, who claims a teenage stranger has manipulated her way into his mother's life and fortune. Maya stopped leaving the house, stopped looking at her phone, stopped reading the news. But Eleanor wouldn't let her hide. We have a court date, Eleanor said. A preliminary hearing, and you're coming with me. I want the judge to meet you, to see for himself that you're a real person, not some tabloid monster. The weekend before the hearing, something shifted. It started with a letter to the editor in the Arizona Republic, written by Rosa Delgado. To the editor, I read with disgust your coverage of the Eleanor Whitmore case. I worked as Mrs. Whitmore's housekeeper for 15 years. I know her well. I also know her son. Eleanor Whitmore is one of the kindest, sharpest, most generous women I've ever met. Her son Richard visited perhaps twice a year. He called only when he needed something. I watched Eleanor's loneliness grow. If she's found companionship with this young woman, if she's chosen to help someone in need, that's not exploitation. That's who Eleanor has always been. Perhaps instead of investigating Maya Torres, you should investigate why a son who couldn't be bothered to visit suddenly cares so much about her finances. The letter went viral. By Sunday, I Stand With Eleanor was trending. People who'd known Eleanor from her charity work came forward. Board members from the Alzheimer's Association released a statement supporting her right to make her own decisions. And then on Sunday night, the doorbell rang. James came back looking stunned. There are people at the gate. A lot of people. Maya and Eleanor went to the window. Outside dozens of people stood holding candles. Some held signs. Eleanor deserves dignity. Kindness is not a crime. Eleanor walked outside, Maya beside her, and approached the gate. The crowd pressed closer. Mrs. Whitmore, we're here to support you. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Thank you, she called out. Thank you so much. We won't let them do this to you. Someone shouted. One by one people shared stories of Eleanor's generosity, her kindness, her fierce advocacy for people with Alzheimer's. Richard had tried to paint her as a senile victim, but the community knew better. The preliminary hearing took place in a courtroom packed with observers. Reporters lined the back. The vigil participants filled the gallery. Richard sat with his attorney Marcus Reed, a man with silver hair and an expensive suit. Eleanor and Patricia sat at the defense table. Maya sat in the row behind them. Judge Helen Morrison, a black woman in her 50s with a reputation for fairness, entered. All rise. The hearing began. Marcus Reed spoke first, painting Eleanor as vulnerable, her cognitive decline making her susceptible to manipulation. He entered the newspaper articles as evidence. He called a medical expert who testified about how Alzheimer's patients could have good days that masked deeper impairment. Patricia cross-examined. Doctor, you've never examined Mrs. Whitmore, correct? That's correct. So your testimony is based on general patterns, not on Mrs. Whitmore's specific condition. Yes, and Alzheimer's progression varies dramatically from patient to patient. Of course, so it's possible that Mrs. Whitmore retains full decision-making capacity. The doctor hesitated. It's possible. Then Patricia called her witness, Dr. Susan Johnson, Eleanor's neurologist of 10 years. I examined Mrs. Whitmore extensively last week, Dr. Johnson testified. While she does have early-stage Alzheimer's, she absolutely retains the capacity to make informed decisions about her life, her relationships, and her finances. In your professional opinion, is Mrs. Whitmore being exploited? Absolutely not, Dr. Johnson said firmly. I've known Eleanor for a decade. Her decision to welcome Miss Torres is entirely consistent with her character and values. If anything, I've seen her mental health improve since forming this friendship. Isolation is damaging for Alzheimer's patients. Companionship is protective. The courtroom stirred. Finally, Judge Morrison called Eleanor to the stand. Eleanor walked to the witness box slowly but with dignity. She was sworn in. Mrs. Whitmore, Patricia began gently. Can you tell the court about the night you met Maya Torres? Eleanor did. She spoke clearly about being lost and afraid. About Maya stopping when everyone else walked past. About the 2-hour bike ride. She gave up everything to help me, Eleanor said. She lost her home that night, her job, everything, and she did it anyway, expecting nothing in return. And why did you invite her to stay with you? Because I was lonely, Eleanor said simply. Because my house was empty and my heart was empty, and she filled both. Because showing kindness to someone who showed me kindness isn't exploitation. It's human decency. Marcus Reed stood to cross-examine. Mrs. Whitmore, isn't it true that you don't always remember things clearly? Yes, Eleanor said. I have Alzheimer's. Some days are harder than others, but I'm sitting here right now under oath, telling you the truth. Maya Torres is not using me. She saved me, and I won't let my son punish her for that. But you've changed your will to include her. Doesn't that seem extreme? Eleanor's eyes flashed. I've known my son for 55 years, and I've watched him visit me fewer times as I've gotten sicker. I've known Maya for 3 months, and she's been with me every single day. She reads to me when I can't focus. She holds my hand when I'm frightened. She reminds me who I am when I forget. Her voice broke. So no, counselor, it doesn't seem extreme at all. It seems like the most rational decision I've ever made. The courtroom was silent. She looked directly at Richard for the first time. What I won't choose is to let fear and suspicion poison the first real happiness I've felt in years. Judge Morrison called a recess. Maya stood in the courthouse hallway, hands shaking. Richard approached. You're going to lose, Richard said quietly. Even if you win today, I'll appeal. Maya looked at him, really looked at him. She saw anger, yes, but underneath fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of being replaced. I didn't take anything from you, Maya said. Your mother has enough love for both of us, but you're so busy protecting your inheritance that you can't see you're losing something much more valuable. And what's that? Maya said simply. Every day you spend fighting me is a day you could have spent with her. And she doesn't have unlimited days left. For a moment something cracked in Richard's expression. Then the mask came back. This isn't over, he said, and walked away. Judge Morrison returned to the bench. I've reviewed the evidence and heard the testimony, she said. And I'm going to rule from the bench. The courtroom held its breath. Mr. Whitmore, I understand your concern for your mother, but concern is not the same as evidence. She looked at her notes. The evidence shows that Mrs. Whitmore, while living with a progressive disease, retains full decision-making capacity. Her neurologist confirms this. Her testimony confirms this. She turned to Richard. What I don't see is any evidence of exploitation. I see an elderly woman who was helped by a young woman in need, and who chose to help that young woman in return. I see two people who have formed a genuine friendship, and I see a son who, whether motivated by concern or financial interest, is attempting to override his mother's clearly stated wishes. The petition for emergency guardianship is denied. Mrs. Whitmore retains full legal capacity to manage her own affairs. The gallery erupted in applause. Furthermore, I'm ordering Mr. Whitmore to pay all court costs and attorney's fees. This case never should have been filed. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Eleanor turned and grabbed Maya's hands, tears streaming. Patricia was grinning. James allowed himself a small smile. Across the aisle, Richard sat frozen. As they left, reporters swarmed. Patricia held up a hand. Mrs. Whitmore will make a brief statement. Eleanor stepped forward, Maya beside her. She looked directly into the cameras. Today justice was served. Not just for me, but for every senior citizen who has been told they're not capable of making their own choices. She put her arm around Maya. This young woman saved my life twice. Once when she brought me home, and once when she brought life back into my home. I'm grateful to the court for recognizing that kindness is not a crime. Someone shouted, "What do you say to your son?" Eleanor's expression softened with sadness. I say that my door is always open, and I hope someday he'll walk through it not as an adversary but as my son. That evening, back at the house, they sat in the garden as the sun set. Eleanor was exhausted, but there was peace in her face. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Eleanor said. It was worth it, Maya said. To stand up for you, for us.
They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to purple. What happens now? Maya asked. Now? Eleanor smiled. Now we live. You finish your GED. We work on college applications. We have breakfast on the terrace and dinner in the garden. We move forward. And Richard, Eleanor's smile faded slightly. Richard will make his own choices. I can't control that, but I won't let his anger dictate my happiness anymore. The lights of the city began to twinkle below. You know, Eleanor said thoughtfully, when Thomas died, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone, that I'd already had my share of love. She looked at Maya. But you taught me something important. That family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choosing each other, again and again. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know what I did to deserve you. You stopped. Eleanor said simply. When everyone else walked past, you stopped. That's all it took. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her new shirt. First day of classes at Phoenix College. She'd passed her GED with high scores. Eleanor insisted on walking her to her first class, despite Maya's protests. Indulge an old woman, Eleanor said. I want to see where my investment is going. Your investment, my best investment, Eleanor corrected. As they walked across campus, Maya felt something shift. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was building a future. Eleanor hugged her at the building entrance. Go learn something wonderful. I'll see you at dinner. Maya watched her walk back to the car, moving slower than she used to. James hovering protectively. The Alzheimer's was still there, still progressing. But Eleanor was fighting it with everything she had. Maya turned and walked into the building. The semester flew by. Maya thrived, discovering a love for literature and psychology. She made friends. She joined a study group. She volunteered at a senior center. At home, she and Eleanor settled into comfortable routines. Mornings for studying, afternoons for Eleanor's appointments, evenings for cooking together, watching Jeopardy, working in the garden. Patricia helped Maya set up the Willow Light Foundation, named after the street Eleanor couldn't remember that night. A small non-profit dedicated to helping homeless youth. The first recipient was a 17-year-old girl living in her car. Her name is Sarah, Maya told Eleanor. She reminds me of me. Then she's lucky to have found you, Eleanor said. They never heard from Richard. He disappeared after the court case. Eleanor grieved the loss quietly, but didn't let it consume her. I can't force him to forgive me for choosing my own happiness, she said once. All I can do is leave the door open. By spring, Eleanor's bad days began to outnumber her good ones. Mornings when she didn't recognize the house. Afternoons when she called Maya, Sophie. Evenings when she grew agitated and frightened. Maya learned to navigate the disease. She created photo albums with captions. She established routines. She stayed calm during outbursts and patient during repetitive questions. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done. But it was also, in a strange way, a gift. Every lucid moment with Eleanor became precious. One afternoon in April, Eleanor had a moment of perfect clarity. She was sitting in the garden, roses in full bloom. I want to tell you something while I still can, Eleanor said, her voice strong. You saved my life, Maya. Not just that night at the bus stop. You saved me from dying alone in this big empty house, forgotten. You gave me purpose again, love again. You gave me the same thing, Maya said, tears streaming. Good, Eleanor said. Then we're even. She smiled. Except I think I got the better end of the deal. I got to spend my final good years with someone who saw me as a person, not a diagnosis. I'll always see you as a person, Maya promised. Eleanor touched Maya's face. I know, sweetheart. That's why I chose you. Maya stood at a podium in front of 200 people. She was 24 now, with a bachelor's degree in social work. The Willow Light Foundation had grown, helping hundreds of young people. But today was the dedication of the Eleanor R. Whitmore Center for Alzheimer's Support and Research, funded by Eleanor's estate. Maya had been there when Eleanor passed, 2 years ago on a quiet October morning. Eleanor had opened her eyes one last time, looked directly at Maya, and whispered, "Thank you for stopping." Now looking out at the crowd, Maya saw Patricia still sharp at 70, James retired but present, Carlos, even Richard was there, standing in the back. After Eleanor's death, he'd reached out. I was wrong about you, he'd written. I'm sorry I couldn't see it sooner. It wasn't quite forgiveness, but it was a start. Maya began her speech. 5 years ago I was homeless, hungry, and convinced the world had nothing left to offer me. And then I met an elderly woman at a bus stop, who was lost and afraid. I could have kept riding. I had every reason to. But something made me stop. She paused, looking at Eleanor's photograph behind her. Eleanor Whitmore taught me that kindness is never wasted. That one small act of compassion can ripple outward in ways we can never predict. She taught me that family is built, not born. That dignity matters, that every person, regardless of age or illness or circumstance, deserves to be seen. Her voice grew stronger. This center exists because Eleanor believed that people with Alzheimer's are still people, still deserving of respect, of love, of care, that honors who they are. And it exists because she taught me that when someone needs help, you stop. You don't walk past. You stop. She looked directly at the audience. So I'm asking you today to make the same choice Eleanor made for me, and that I made for her. When you see someone who needs help, at a bus stop, in a store, in your own family, stop. Choose kindness over convenience. Choose connection over isolation. Choose to see the person, not the problem. Her voice broke slightly, because sometimes the life you save might be your own. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Later, after the ceremony, Maya stood alone in the garden area of the center, designed to look like Eleanor's garden. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photo she kept there, her and Eleanor both laughing. "We did it," Maya whispered. "Everything you dreamed of, it's real." A voice behind her, "She'd be proud of you." Richard stood a few feet away, hands in pockets, looking weathered. "She was proud of you too," Maya said carefully. "Even at the end, she never stopped hoping you'd come back." Richard nodded, his throat working. "I know, I read her letters, Patricia gave them to me after." He looked away. "I wasted so much time being angry, and now she's gone." "I'm sorry," Maya said, and meant it. "Don't be." Richard met her eyes. "You gave her something I couldn't. You made her happy. I should have thanked you for that. Instead I tried to destroy you. You were protecting your mother." "No," Richard said firmly. "I was protecting my inheritance. There's a difference, and I'm ashamed it took me this long to admit it." They stood in silence. "There's a board position opening up at the foundation," Maya said finally. "Patricia suggested I ask you." Richard looked surprised. "Me? Why?" "Because Eleanor loved you. And because everyone deserves a second chance." Richard's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve, none of us deserve grace," Maya interrupted. "We just receive it, and then we try to pass it on." She extended her hand. After a moment, Richard took it. That night, Maya drove back to the house in Arcadia Heights. It was hers now, left to her in Eleanor's will, but it didn't feel like hers. It felt like Eleanor's, like it always would. She walked through the quiet rooms, past photos, past the study, past the kitchen. Finally she stood in the garden and looked up at the stars. "I miss you," she said to the night. "Every single day, but I'm keeping my promise. I'm stopping when people need help. I'm choosing kindness. I'm trying to be the person you believed I could be." The wind rustled through the roses, carrying the scent of lavender, and for just a moment, Maya could have sworn she heard Eleanor's voice, warm and clear. "You already are, sweetheart. You already are." The morning sun filtered through the windows of the Willow Light Center's community room, casting golden rectangles across the polished floor. Maya stood near the coffee station, watching as young people filtered in for the weekly support group. Some came alone, shoulders hunched and eyes down. Others arrived in pairs, holding on to each other like lifelines. She recognized that look, the weariness, the exhaustion that came from fighting every single day just to exist. She'd worn that same expression a year ago, pedaling through Phoenix with everything she owned, fitting into 2 garbage bags. "Maya," a soft voice pulled her attention. Sarah, the 17-year-old who'd been the foundation's first grant recipient, stood nearby holding a folder. "I finished my GED practice test. Want to see?" Maya took the folder, flipping through pages marked with careful pencil strokes. "Sarah, this is incredible. You got 92% on the math section." Sarah's face lit up, then immediately dimmed. as if she was afraid to let herself feel proud. "You think I'm ready for the real thing?" "I know you are," Maya said firmly. "We'll register you this week." After Sarah left, Patricia appeared at Maya's elbow. The attorney had become a fixture at the center, volunteering her time to help with legal issues the young people faced: emancipation paperwork, name changes, protection orders. "Big day tomorrow," Patricia said, sipping her coffee. "You nervous?" Tomorrow was the one-year anniversary celebration. The mayor would be there, local news stations, donors who'd helped the foundation grow from Eleanor's initial gift into something that had already changed 53 lives. Terrified, Maya admitted, "Public speaking still isn't my thing." "You'll be fine, just tell your story. That's all anyone needs to hear." Patricia paused. "Have you been to visit her this week?" Maya nodded. "Yesterday. She didn't recognize me at first. Called me Rosa actually, her old housekeeper. Bad day, not the worst," she remembered by the end. "We sat in the garden for an hour. She told me about Thomas, about their honeymoon in Santa Fe. Stories I've heard before, but," Maya's voice caught, "I don't know how many more times I'll get to hear them." Patricia squeezed her shoulder. "You're doing everything right, Maya." Everything she wanted. That evening, Maya drove to the Whitmore estate. It still felt strange to pull up to the gate, and have it open automatically, to park in the circular driveway, like she belonged there. James greeted her at the door, his face creasing into a smile. "She's been asking for you all day," he said. "Good day today." Maya found Eleanor in the sunroom, a blanket across her lap despite the warm evening. Eleanor's face brightened when Maya entered. "There you are," Eleanor said, her voice strong and clear. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me." "Never," Maya said, kneeling beside Eleanor's chair and taking her hand. "How are you feeling?" Old Eleanor said with a wry smile. "But present, that's something." She studied Maya's face. "Big day tomorrow, the anniversary. You remember? I'm not gone yet, sweetheart." Eleanor's grip tightened. "I want you to know something. While I can still say it clearly," she paused, gathering her words. "When you stopped that night, when you chose to help me instead of helping yourself, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. You gave me proof that kindness still exists in this world. That people still see each other." Eleanor let me finish. Eleanor's eyes were bright with tears, but also with fierce clarity. "I've been wealthy my whole adult life. I've written checks to charities, funded scholarships, done all the things rich people do to feel like they're making a difference. But you showed me what real generosity looks like. It's not writing a check, it's sacrificing something you desperately need for someone you don't even know." Maya felt tears streaming down her own face. "You changed my life, we changed each other's lives," Eleanor corrected. "That's what love does. Real love, the kind you choose." She reached up and touched Maya's cheek. "You're my daughter now. Not by blood, but by choice. And that makes it more real than anything biology could create." They sat together as the sun set, not needing to fill the silence with words. This was what family felt like, Maya realized. Not the family you were born into, but the family you built from moments of kindness and choice. The next morning, Maya stood backstage at the Willow Light Center's auditorium, listening to the murmur of the crowd gathering outside. 200 seats, Patricia had said, all full. She peeked through the curtain and saw faces she recognized. Carlos, who'd given her shelter when she had nothing. Mr. Johnson, who'd actually apologized 6 months ago for putting her things on the street. Young people from the foundation, dressed in their best clothes, sitting up straight with pride. And in the front row in a wheelchair with James beside her, was Eleanor. She'd insisted on coming despite her doctor's concerns. She wore a lavender dress, and her pearls, her hair styled perfectly. When she saw Maya peeking out, she winked. Richard sat beside his mother. He joined the foundation's board 3 months ago, quietly at first, then with growing involvement. He'd never fully apologized, not in words, but he'd shown up. Week after week, he showed up. That counted for something. "You're on," Patricia whispered, nudging Maya toward the stage. Maya walked out to applause. She stood at the podium, looking out at all those faces, and felt her prepared speech evaporate from her mind. Instead she spoke from her heart. "A year ago I was angry," she began. "Angry at the world for taking my mother. Angry at a system that made me choose between helping someone and keeping a roof over my head. Angry at everyone who'd ever walked past someone who needed help, because stopping wasn't convenient." She paused, finding Eleanor's eyes in the crowd. "And then I met a woman at a bus stop, who was lost and scared, and I had a choice. I could keep pedaling toward my own survival, or I could stop. I could see her, I could help." Maya's voice grew stronger. "That choice cost me everything I had in that moment. My job, my home, my sense of security. But it gave me something infinitely more valuable. It gave me Eleanor. It gave me family. It gave me purpose, and it taught me the most important lesson of my life: we are not powerless." She looked around the room, making eye contact with the young people scattered throughout. Every single person in this room has been told at some point that they don't matter, that they're not enough, that their circumstances define their worth. But Eleanor taught me that's a lie. We matter because we choose to matter. We have power because we choose to use it. Even when we have nothing, especially when we have nothing, we still have the choice to see each other, to stop, to help, to love. Her voice broke slightly. The Willow Light Foundation exists because one elderly woman chose to see a homeless teenager as a human being, because she chose love over fear, because she chose to believe that family is something we build, not something we're born into. Maya looked directly at Eleanor now, speaking only to her. "You saved my life. You gave me a future. You showed me what it means to be seen. And now it's my turn, our turn, to do the same for others." She addressed the room again. "So I'm asking each of you to make a choice. When you see someone who needs help, stop. When you have the chance to show kindness, take it. When you can choose love over convenience, do it. Because that's how we change the world, not with grand gestures, but with small acts of courage. With one person stopping for another, at a bus stop on a random Tuesday evening." The applause started slowly, then built into a standing ovation. Maya's eyes never left Eleanor, who was crying openly now, James holding her hand. After the ceremony, after the photographs and the handshakes and the interviews, Maya wheeled Eleanor out to the center's garden. They sat among the roses and lavender, two women who'd found each other in the dark, and built something beautiful from it. "I'm proud of you," Eleanor said softly. "So proud." "I'm proud of us," Maya corrected. Eleanor smiled. "Yes." She closed her eyes, tilting her face toward the sun. "This is what I'll remember, you know, when everything else fades. I'll remember this, you and me in the garden. The smell of roses, the feeling of having done something that mattered." "You'll always matter," Maya whispered. "So will you, sweetheart. So will you." They sat together in the afternoon light, surrounded by flowers, and the sound of young voices drifting from inside the center, voices full of hope and possibility, and second chances, proof that one choice, one moment of kindness, could ripple outward forever. Eleanor dozed off, her hand still in Maya's, and Maya sat guard, watching over the woman who'd taught her that stopping wasn't weakness, it was strength, it was love, it was everything that made life worth living. In the distance a bus drove past on 7th Street. Maya watched it go, thinking of that night a year ago, thinking of the choice that had changed everything. She'd stopped, and in stopping she'd found her way home.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.